Welcome to Professor Joe's Education Channel and Advocacy, a philosophy lecture series. This channel is the author's collection of philosophy lecture series for student and classroom purposes. A disclaimer is provided to ensure that all information on the site and our mobile application is provided in good faith. We make no representation or warranty of accuracy in any kind, expressed or implied. Thank you.
In the labyrinth of human existence, we are constantly faced with choices that shape our actions and define our moral character. But what principles should guide our decisions? What compels us to act in certain ways, even when faced with adversity or temptation? Duty ethics, a prominent ethical theory, posits that our actions should be driven by a sense of moral obligation, rooted in reason and universal principles. At its core, duty ethics, also known as deontological ethics, emphasizes the inherent rightness or wrongness of actions themselves, regardless of their consequences. It diverges from consequentialist theories such as utilitarianism, which prioritize actions that maximize happiness or pleasure, and natural law theories, which ground morality in inherent human nature or divine will. Duty ethics, in contrast, finds its foundation in the concept of duty, an internal compass guiding us towards morally upright behavior. The origins of duty ethics can be traced back to ancient Greek philosophy, particularly the Stoics' emphasis on living in accordance with reason and virtue. However, it was the 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant who gave duty ethics its most influential and systematic formulation. Kant's groundbreaking work, Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals, laid the groundwork for a rigorous and compelling ethical framework centered on the concept of the categorical imperative. The categorical imperative, a cornerstone of Kant's philosophy, serves as a universal moral law, dictating that we should act only according to principles that we could rationally will to be universal laws. This concept forms the bedrock of duty ethics, urging us to transcend self-interest and embrace a higher moral calling. Immanuel Kant, a towering figure in Western philosophy, revolutionized ethical thought with his groundbreaking concept of duty ethics. Born in Königsberg, Prussia in 1724, Kant dedicated his life to exploring the nature of knowledge, morality, and human reason. His meticulous and systematic approach to philosophy left an indelible mark on the intellectual landscape, shaping generations of thinkers and laying the foundation for modern ethical discourse. Kant's ethical theory emerged from his deep conviction that morality must be grounded in reason, not in emotions, desires, or societal norms. He argued that true moral worth lies not in the consequences of our actions, but in the intentions behind them. In other words, an action is morally right, not because it produces good outcomes, but because it is motivated by a sense of duty, a recognition of the inherent rightness of the action itself. Central to Kant's ethical framework is the concept of the good will. For Kant, the good will is the only thing that is good without qualification. It is not good because of what it achieves or because of its effects, but good in itself. The good will is the will that acts from duty, out of respect for the moral law, not out of self-interest, inclination, or emotional impulses. Kant's emphasis on reason as the foundation of morality led him to formulate the categorical imperative, a universal moral principle that serves as the cornerstone of duty ethics. This principle, expressed in various formulations, provides a rational and objective standard for evaluating the morality of our actions. By grounding morality in reason, Kant sought to establish an ethical framework that transcends subjective preferences and cultural differences, offering a universal compass for navigating the complexities of human conduct. In the realm of ethics, where subjective values and cultural norms often clash, the categorical imperative stands as a beacon of universal moral guidance. Formulated by Immanuel Kant, this principle serves as a litmus test for determining the moral worth of our actions, guiding us towards a higher standard of conduct. Unlike hypothetical imperatives, which depend on desires or goals, the categorical imperative commands absolutely, irrespective of our personal inclinations. The categorical imperative, often expressed as act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law, calls upon us to universalize our actions. In other words, before acting, we must ask ourselves whether we could rationally will that everyone act on the same principle. If the answer is no, then the action is morally impermissible, as it violates the principle of universality. Consider, for example, the act of lying. While lying might serve our self-interest in certain situations, it cannot be universalized without undermining the very fabric of trust that holds society together. If everyone were to lie whenever it suited them, communication would become impossible and social cooperation would crumble. Thus, the categorical imperative reveals the inherent wrongness of lying, not because of its consequences, but because it violates a fundamental moral principle. The categorical imperative is not merely a theoretical construct, but a practical guide for navigating the complexities of moral decision-making. It calls upon us to examine our motives, to consider the broader implications of our actions, and to strive for a level of conduct that transcends self-interest and embraces a higher moral purpose. By grounding morality in reason and universality, the categorical imperative provides a solid foundation for building a just and ethical society. At the heart of Kant's categorical imperative lies the principle of universality, a cornerstone of duty ethics that compels us to consider the broader implications of our actions. This principle serves as a moral compass, guiding us towards actions that could be universally accepted and away from those that would lead to contradiction or chaos if everyone were to adopt them. The principle of universality, in essence, calls upon us to universalize our maxims, the subjective principles that underlie our actions. A maxim is a personal rule or principle that guides our behavior in a particular situation. For example, if you are considering breaking a promise to meet a friend because something more appealing came up, your maxim might be, "I will break promises whenever it is convenient for me." The principle of universality challenges us to imagine a world in which everyone acted on our maxim. Would such a world be desirable? Would it be possible? If our maxim, when universalized, leads to contradiction or undermines the very possibility of the action itself, then it is deemed morally impermissible. In the case of breaking promises, universalizing this maxim would erode the very foundation of trust and commitment that makes promises possible in the first place. If everyone broke promises whenever it was convenient, promises would lose their value, and social cooperation would become impossible. Thus, the principle of universality reveals the inherent wrongness of breaking promises, not because it might hurt someone's feelings, but because it violates a fundamental moral principle that underpins social order. The principle of universality, therefore, serves as a powerful tool for ethical decision-making, urging us to transcend our self-interest and consider the broader implications of our actions. By embracing this principle, we strive for a world where our actions could be universally accepted, contributing to a more just and harmonious society.
Thanks for watching Professor Joe's Education Channel and Advocacy. A full fair use copyright disclaimer statement is provided here. Thank you.